Today's scripture reading is a relatively long one. That's all good. It's the word of the Lord. From Genesis chapter 6, and I'll be starting reading at verse 9. This is the account of Noah and his family. Noah was a righteous man, blameless among the people of his time, and he walked faithfully with God. Noah had 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Now, the earth was corrupt in God's sight and was full of violence. God saw how corrupt the earth had become, for all the people on earth had corrupted their ways. So God said to Noah, I am going to put an end to all people, for the earth is filled with violence because of them. I'm surely going to destroy both them and the earth. So make yourself an ark of cypress wood. Make rooms in it and coat it with pitch inside and out. This is how you are to build it. The ark is to be 300 cubits long, 50 cubits wide, and 30 cubits high. Make a roof for it, leaving below the roof an opening 1 cubit high all around. Put a door in the side of the ark and make lower, middle, and upper decks. I am going to bring flood waters on the earth to destroy all life under the heavens. Every creature that has the breath of life in it, everything on earth will perish. But I will establish my covenant with you, and you will enter the ark, you and your sons and your wife and your sons' wives with you. You are to bring into the ark 2 of all living creatures, male and female, to keep them alive with you. 2 of every kind of bird, of every kind of animal, and of every kind of creature that moves along the ground will come to you to be kept alive. You are to take every kind of food that is to be eaten and store it away as food for you and for them. Noah did everything just as God commanded him. The Lord then said to Noah, Go into the ark, you and your whole family, because I have found you righteous in this generation. Take with you 7 pairs of every kind of clean animal, a male and its mate, and 1 pair of every kind of unclean animal, a male and its mate, and also 7 pairs of every kind of bird, male and female, to keep their various kinds alive throughout the earth. 7 days from now, I will send rain on the earth for 40 days and 40 nights, and I will wipe from the face of the earth every living creature I have made. And Noah did all that the Lord commanded him. Noah was 600 years old when the floodwaters came on the earth, and Noah and his sons and his wife and his sons' wives entered the ark to escape the waters of the flood. Pairs of clean and unclean animals, of birds, and of all creatures that move along the ground, male and female, came to Noah and entered the ark, as God had commanded Noah. And after the 7 days, flood waters came on the earth. In the 600th year of Noah's life, on the 17th day of the 2nd month, on that day, all the springs of the great deep burst forth, and the floodgates of the heavens were opened, and rain fell on the earth 40 days and 40 nights. On that very day, Noah and his sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, together with his wife and the wives of his 3 sons, entered the ark. They had with them every wild creature according to its kind, all livestock according to their kinds, every creature that moves along the ground according to its kind, and every bird according to its kind, everything with wings. Pairs of all creatures that have the breath of life in them came to Noah and entered the ark. The animals going in were male and female of every living thing, as God had commanded Noah. Then the Lord shut him in. For 40 days the flood kept coming on the earth. And as the waters increased, they lifted the ark high above the earth. The waters rose and increased greatly on the earth, and the ark floated on the surface of the water. They rose greatly on the earth, and all the high mountains under the entire heavens were covered. The waters rose and covered the mountains to a depth of more than 15 cubits. Every living thing that moved on land perished: birds, livestock, wild animals, and the creatures that swarm over the earth, and all mankind. Everything on dry land that had the breath of life in its nostrils died. Every living thing on the face of the earth was wiped out. People and animals and creatures that move along the ground and the birds were wiped from the earth. Only Noah was left and those with him in the ark. The waters flooded the earth for 150 days. But God remembered Noah and all the wild animals and the livestock that were with him in the ark. And he sent a wind over the earth, and the waters receded. Now the springs of the deep and the floodgates of the heavens had been closed, and the rain had stopped falling from the sky. The water receded steadily from the earth. At the end of the 150 days, the water had gone down. And on the 17th day of the 7th month, the ark came to rest on the mountains of Ararat. The waters continued to recede until the 10th month. And on the first day of the 10th month, the tops of the mountains became visible. After 40 days, Noah opened a window he had made in the ark and sent out a raven, and it kept flying back and forth until the water had dried up from the earth. Then he sent out a dove to see if the water had receded from the surface of the ground. But the dove could find nowhere to perch, because there was water over all the surface of the earth. So it returned to Noah in the ark. He reached out his hand and took the dove and brought it back to himself in the ark. He waited 7 more days and again sent out the dove from the ark. When the dove returned to him in the evening, there was in its beak a freshly plucked olive leaf. Then Noah knew that the waters had receded from the earth. He waited 7 more days and sent the dove out again, but this time it did not return to him. By the first day of the 1st month of Noah's 601st year, the water had dried up from the earth. Noah then removed the covering from the ark and saw that the surface of the ground was dry. By the 27th day of the 2nd month, the earth was completely dry. Then God said to Noah, "Come out of the ark, you and your wife and your sons and their wives. Bring out every kind of living creature that is with you, the birds, the animals, and all the creatures that move along the ground, so they can multiply on the earth and be fruitful and increase their number on it." This is the word of the Lord.
I want us to get a whole perspective of the story of Noah. And as you know, this summer, we'll be journeying in a sermon series called Adult Sunday School. You know those stories that we learned when we were children in the Sunday school classes? Like the Exodus, Noah's Ark, 10 Commandments, Jesus healing the 10 lepers, David and Goliath, etc., etc. I thought, why not revisit those stories as adults and get a different perspective, a fresh perspective, and lessons for our lives. So I hope this summer series will be a bit of a nostalgia, but also an opportunity to learn from the Bible new things that we never imagined that we could have learned from those stories. So today, we are looking at Noah and the ark. And no children draw pictures of it. We put it on nursery walls. There are movies about this story, and it's one of the most famous stories in the whole world. But here's a problem. Because we think we already know this story, we sometimes stop asking what it actually means. We hear Noah's Ark, and we think big boat, animals, rainbow, the end. Today we're going to go a little bit deeper. Because when we look carefully at this story, we discover something powerful, something surprising, something that speaks directly to our lives right now. This is not just a story about a flood. It is a story about who God is, what sin does to the world, and how far God will go to make a way for broken people to be saved. But before we can understand the flood, we need to understand why it happened. In Genesis chapter 6, verse 5 and 6, it says, the Lord saw the wickedness of humanity, that the Lord saw that the wickedness of humanity was great in the earth, and that every intention of their thoughts, of their hearts, was only evil continually. And the Lord regretted that he had made humans on the earth, and it grieved him to his heart. The word grieved in the original Hebrew means a deep, deep pain. It is the same kind of pain when a parent feels when they watch their child destroy their own life. God looked at the world and he was heartbroken. Bruce Waltke, who used to be a professor at Regent College and used to be a member of our church as well, he's a theologian. He points out that the core problem in Genesis 6 is violence. The earth was filled with violence. And this is not just people being rude with each other, like honk at the light on the traffic. This is a world where the strong hurt the weak, where the powerful crush those who had no power, where human beings made in the image of God were treating each other like objects to be used and thrown away. And here is a simple way to think about it. Imagine a beautiful painting, a masterpiece. Now imagine someone takes a rock and smash it, or tears it, or write graphics all over it. This is what sin was doing to God's creation. Every human being is made in the image of God. And violence against human beings is violence against the image of God. And the whole world had become a place where God's image was being destroyed every single day. God could not look away. He could not pretend it was fine. A holy God who loves goodness and loves people must respond to evil. So this is not God being cruel. This is God being righteous. But here is where the story takes a beautiful turn. In Genesis chapter 6, verse 8, just one verse of all that darkness, it says, but Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord. And this is the first time that the word grace appears in the Bible. Grace, that is favor, undeserved kindness. And it appears right in the middle of a world full of violence and corruption. Before God says anything to Noah, before Noah builds anything, before Noah does a single thing, God gives him grace. And this is the first takeaway that I want us to remember today. That grace always comes before the call. God does not say to Noah, work hard enough and earn my favor. God gives Noah grace first. Then he calls Noah. Then he gives Noah a task. The same is true for us. We do not earn our way to God. God comes to us first in grace. Now, what did Noah do with that grace? He obeyed. The Bible says he did all that God commanded him to do. That sounds simple. But think about what God asked him to do. To build a massive boat in a world that may have never seen a global flood before. And it probably took him decades to build a boat. So imagine your neighbors watching you. Imagine the questions, the jokes, the mocking. Hey Noah, what is that thing that you're building? Why does it need to be so big? Is it going to rain here? So here's another analogy that might help you. Imagine you are a doctor and you see clear signs that someone is seriously ill. You warn them, you tell them to make change, to get treatment. But everyone around them says, oh no, you look fine. The doctor is crazy. Every day that person delays, they are choosing comfort over truth. And Noah was the doctor. He preached for years. Later on in the Bible, in the New Testament, all the way to 2 Peter, at the end of the Bible, Peter will say that Noah was a preacher of righteousness, and no one listened to him. But Noah kept building the boat. Again, Bruce Waltke emphasized that Noah is described as a man who walked with God. It's the same language used in the previous chapter. In the previous chapter, there is a story of a guy called Enoch. And that chapter says that Enoch walked with God. And to walk with God means to live your everyday life in step with God, to keep it in rhythm with Him, to stay close. It's not a perfect life that the Bible is talking about. Noah had failures too. And if you keep reading his story to the end, you see how it ends. But it is a life oriented toward God. That means to walk with God. And here is something important. The Bible doesn't say Noah was saved because he was sinless. Noah was saved because he trusted God and obeyed God. And the same grace that found Noah is the same grace that finds us today here. A second takeaway for you today here. Obedience sometimes looks foolish to the world, but obedience to God is never wasted. What is God asking you to do that seems strange to people around you? What has He spoken to your heart that you have been afraid to do because of what others might think? Noah's example says, keep building, keep walking with God. The rain will eventually come. And now the flood comes. And I want you to notice something most people miss here. That the flood is a story, an ancient story, that it was written in a pattern called chiasm. Ancient writings have this pattern called chiasm. What is chiasm? It's like a mirror, like the text looks like a mirror. So the story goes forward all the way here and it reaches its peak, and then the story comes back down. Some people put it like this, and like this. But right in the middle is the most important thing in this story. Right in the middle of this story. And what is in the middle of Noah's story? Right there, like right there. Genesis 8, chapter 1, we read this morning. But God remembered Noah. God remembered Noah. This is the filet mignon for today. The crème de la crème. If you live here and for everything that I say this morning, just remember this. But God remembered Noah. In the original Hebrew, remembered does not mean that God forgot Noah and suddenly called him. Oh, where is Noah? I forgot. It's not that kind of remember. It means God turned His full attention, love, and care toward Noah. In the darkest, wettest, remember this verse in chapter 8 is when the flood is at its peak. Like it's dark, it's wet. Most terrifying moment in the story. There was nothing but water in every direction, and God remembered. And then things start to change after that in the story. The waters went down, the land appeared, the birds found ground, the door of the ark was opened. Noah walked out onto the new earth. And you heard the pattern that I just said to you, what is happening here. The flood is not just destruction, it's a new creation. Just as God brought order out of the chaos in the first chapter of the Bible in Genesis 1, remember water there, separating water from land and then filling the earth with living things. He does it again here. The world that came out of the flood was a fresh start, a second chance. Scholars, people who study the Bible, professors, often call this new creation theme of the flood. The waters that destroyed also gave way to a world reborn. Here's an example many of us understand. Sometimes in life, God does not take us around the storm. He takes us through the storm. The storm itself becomes the thing that clears the way for something new in our life. And you may be in a season right now that feels like rising water, or confusing, or overwhelming. No land in sight. But remember, Genesis 8:1, God remembers. He does not forget you in the flood. And the waters will eventually go down. Again, the New Testament, at the end, 1 Peter puts this theme in a powerful way. 1 Peter chapter 3, the Apostle Peter says that the flood points us to baptism. And baptism points us to salvation through Jesus Christ. The ark carried Noah safely through the waters of judgment. And Jesus Christ carries us safely through the judgment we deserve for our sin. The waters that killed became the water through which Noah was saved. The death that Jesus died became the death through which we receive life. So the third takeaway for you this morning: God is at work even in the storm. The middle of your hardest chapter may be where God is doing His most important work. Noah and his family step off the ark. And the first thing Noah does is to worship. He builds an altar and offers sacrifice to God. And this is important for us here. After everything, after the loss, after the fear, after the days on the water, his first response is not, "Hey, I survived, I made it." His first response is to turn toward God and to worship Him. And then God makes a covenant, a serious promise with Noah and his family and with every living creature on earth. And God says, this is chapter 9 later on, "I establish my covenant with you that never again shall all flesh be cut off by the waters of the flood." And this covenant is unconditional. God does not say, "As I promise as long as you behave." God simply promises, period. He hangs a rainbow in the sky as a sign of His covenant. And pay attention, it is not for us to look and remind ourselves that God will not destroy the world in water anymore. Genesis chapter 9, it says that when the rainbow appears, God sees it and remembers His covenant. As God gave Himself a reminder, God committed Himself to this world. Think about that. After all the violence, after all the wickedness, after everything that broken heart does to the earth and to people, God looks at the world and says, "I'm not done. I'm not done with you. I'm staying. I'm committed to you." This covenant with Noah is the foundation that makes everything else in the Bible possible. It's a promise of a stable world where God can work out His plan of salvation, a plan that will eventually bring us to Jesus Christ, the one who does not just promise to save us from water, but save us from sin and death itself. Another takeaway, the fourth one today. God's promises are not conditional on your performance. What God has committed to, He will not walk back. His yes does not become a no when you fail. The flood narrative is ancient, it's old, but it's still a message for us right here, right now, today. We live in a world that is still full of violence, still full of brokenness. Every day we see evidence that something has gone terribly wrong with human heart. And sometimes, if we're honest, we look at the mirror and we see the brokenness in ourselves too. But the God of Genesis, the God of Noah's Ark, is still the same God today. He is a God who grieves over a broken world, which means He takes your pain seriously. He is not distant, unmoved. Your suffering matters to Him. He is a God who gives grace before gives the call, which means He is not waiting for you to be good enough, to be perfect. He comes to you first with grace. He is a God who says, I remember you in the middle of the flood. Which means even when you cannot see the dry land in front of you, you are not forgotten. He is a God who keeps His promise, not because of what you do, but because of who He is. And one day, the ultimate flood, the final judgment of all that is wrong with this world, came not on us, but on Jesus. He entered the waters so that we could step out onto dry ground. He, Jesus, was forgotten. Remember the cross? My Lord, why have you forsaken me? He was forgotten so that we would always be remembered. He died under the weight of what we deserved so that we could walk into a new creation. Noah walked off that ark into a new world made new. And one day we will also be in a new earth. But until then, we keep walking with God. We keep building what He has called you to build. And when the waters rise, remember, the God who remembered Noah remembers you. Don't forget this. But God remembered Noah. Amen.